very warm good evening to all of you. So I feel this as my privilege to give a warm and give a welcome speech to all the dignitaries present here, to all the delegates. Thank you for joining us on this great poetic evening. So I will start here. On the behalf of the Ecosophical Foundation for the Study of Literature and Environment, EFSLE, I, Archana Kadyan, welcome you all to this poetic evening. As you know, we have the poet Divya Joshi here, who introduces her first anthology of poems, Dance of Life. Such a great work, I will say. And to talk more on this, we have Rochelle Pottinger, who joins us with us today on this day. So I welcome Dr. Divya and Rochelle. Welcome. A very, very warm welcome to all, to both of you. The author, along with her book, and the appraiser will be introduced by Dr. Anita Goswami. Now over to Dr. Anita Goswami for this introduction about Dr. Divya Joshi and So I also welcome, before that, I welcome our chief guest, Mr. Yuyutsu Sharma. He is a world-renowned Himalayan poet who resides in Nepal and USA. And he's the editor of the journal Pratik, a magazine of contemporary writing. He has read his works at several prestigious places, including Poetry Cafe, London, Seamus Heaney Center for Poetry, Belfast, New York University, New York, the Kring, Amsterdam, PEN Paris, Knox College, Illinois, Whittier College, California, Baruch College, New York, W.B. Yeats Center, Sligo, Shi Shangrong, Hebei, China, Gustav Stresemann Institute, Bonn, Rubin Museum, New York, Cosmopoetica, Cordoba, Spain, Beijing International Book Fair, the Irish Writers Center, Dublin, Columbia University, New York, Lu Xun Literary Institute, Beijing, the Guardian Newsroom, London, and many more. A very deep, long list indeed. So we are also grateful to have with us Professor Pramodini Verma, who are a newly appointed Vice President of the Foundation. She is the teacher. She is an outstanding academic teacher and educationist who worked for over 45 years at Delhi University, and she was the former director. SARC established South Asian University at New Delhi. She is now deeply interested in the South Asian short story and South Asian cinema and is now researching in this area. She translates from English and from Hindi to English, and is currently engaged in translating Samuel Beckett's shorter plays into Hindi. Welcome you, ma'am. I also welcome our organization president, Dr. Rishikesh, and the managing director, Dr. Dilip Jaiswal. And I'm sure most of you are familiar with them. Welcome. And now let's welcome our new members, Dr. Parneet Jaggi, who is also an eminent poet, a critic, and associate professor of English, Sri Ganga Nagar, Rajasthan. She is also the joint secretary of our newly established council in Rajasthan North. Happy to welcome Professor Kalpana Purohit, the joint secretary of EFSLE for its Rajasthan West and South Council. And I also welcome Dr. Alpana Joshi, who is also the joint secretary from Rajasthan. And finally, to introduce our new member, new ambassador in Fiji, Professor Murtaz Alam, with whose efforts we were able to establish our executive council in Fiji also. So this was a very great achievement, really. And he's the head of the School of Arts and Humanities, Fiji National University. I welcome you, sir. And I also welcome all the other esteemed members of our foundation. And plus, we after such a long gap of, so we have this first event scheduled, and we will be very happy to welcome you all on this poetic evening. Thank you, and over to Anita.
Thank you, Dr. Archana. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, you are audible.
Okay, thank you. Good evening to all of you. As an integral part of the Ecosophical Foundation from Rajasthan, it's my pleasure to introduce the author of the book, who is also a coordinator of the foundation from Rajasthan only. Dr. Divya Joshi is a creative writer, translator, and has been teaching English for the last 3 decades. Presently, she is an associate professor, Department of English at Government Dangar College, Bikaner. Her doctoral work is on gender concerns in 19th century women novelists, and her areas of research include Indian aesthetics, philosophy, and cultural translation. She is the editor of many books, such as Indian Writing in English, an anthology of poetry, text in translation, and her latest book of poetry is Dance of Life. As I mentioned, her doctoral work had gender concerns, and this clearly reflects in her first anthology of poem, Dance of Life. But yes, here she moves a step ahead, and nature becomes an inevitable part of almost all her poems included in this anthology. We have a book in the session for discussion, which expresses womanhood, nature, memories, and the search of tranquility beautifully. This book is remarkable in the true sense of its simplicity, subtle meaning, less ambiguity. So it discusses all the esoteric questions of women's life associated with nature. I'm sure those who have read her poems must have enjoyed thoroughly because of its beautiful diction, pattern, and poetic expressions. The poem Dance of Life itself says a lot about women, nature, and the life in general. The title Dance of Life actually celebrates Prakriti, the cosmic energy who dances the dance of life in all its glory. I want to recite the poem here, Dance of Life. Here we are, like an epitome of Nritya, moving in perfect harmony, synchronizing the stances and poses, she made her appearance. Like the Prakriti, wearing the resplendent olive green and crimson sari, and Pepi Devila and Nakshivadanam, she conquered the space. Like an unleashed river with her fluid and feline movements, untamed currents and perennial flow, she moved in grace. Like the full moon, radiating eloquence and transmitting cosmic energy, she tantalized and conquered the stage. Like goddess Swaha, emanating fire and spiritual energy, permeating knowledge and serenity, she enthralled the spectators. When the dance, she danced. So, here, to know more about this anthology and the poet more closely, today we have Rochelle Potka, who is in conversation with her. Rochelle is an Indian fiction writer, a poet, an editor, a translator, and a screenwriter based in Mumbai, Maharashtra, India. Rochelle podcasts poetry, film, Skirt, featured on Sonda Rhimes Sondaland. She is an alumna of Iowa's International Writing Program, IWP, and a Charles Wallace Fellow, University of Stirling. Rochelle's work transcends country and culture, and her strong individual voice has received immense recognition and several prestigious awards. Her book of Heaven, Paper Asylum, was shortlisted for the Rabindranath Tagore Literary Prize in 2020. Bombay Hangovers is her recent collection of short stories. She participated in literary festivals including APWT in 2017 in Indonesia, Weird International Literary Festival Ukraine, Glasgow Women's Library, Bengaluru Poetry Festival, Hyderabad Literature Festival, and Odisha Art and Literature Festival. She represented India in Hungary at its FISZ 20 literary camp. So during the conversation, we will explore much more. With this, I welcome both the esteemed poets and congratulate the author of the book for her splendid effort to create such a beautiful piece of art. Thank you to all of you. Now over to Dr. Archana. Thank you.
Ma'am. So it was a very nice introduction. Thank you. Now I invite Dr. Rishikesh Sir, President EFSLE, for a talk for a prelude.
So good evening to all of you, and I am personally thankful to all of you who joined, because most of the people who joined us, they are familiar with EFSLE. However, you all know that EFSLE, as most of you familiar, is an international venture for creative interaction among intellectuals, academicians, environmental activists, naturalists, nature lovers, and those involved and dedicated to these issues, and who are receptive and undogmatic to one another's individuality and their standpoints. So Ecosophical Foundation is devoted to the issues concerned with literature, environment, gender, and human rights, the LEGH movement. LEGH is not simply an ideology, rather it paves a way for creation, expression, revolution, and rejuvenation. Definitely a bonhomie between human and nature. The word ecosophy itself articulates the philosophy of the relationship between human and nature. And due to this concept only, Dr. Divya's book compelled us to shape this event particularly. Dr. Divya has joined us recently, and soon after she gave me surprise with this first anthology. I really didn't know that she's a minstrel with the capacity to evoke the essentialities of freedom, association, memory, and creation in such a beautiful way. She is truly a wordsmith. I just came to know through this book. I really enjoyed and thoroughly enjoyed her book. And thanks a lot to Dr. Divya just to give such idea so that we could create such event and we could begin with. Because after a long time, almost a gap of 2 years, we are back, and we are back with such a beautiful artwork. Divya's poems take you to the world where you know everyone, everything, but you just unable to trace out the true recognition. Still, you are not perplexed, as nature is there to soothe you in. Her poem, actually, as it was recited by Dr. Anita, Dance of Life, I also really enjoyed this particular poem, expresses a lot. The ornamental dispositions are not the one what culture connotes. The poet goes beyond these dispositions and encarves a woman's narrative, not as an escapist, not as an submissive, not as an victimized one, but as a tranquilizer, as a pacifier.
So I invite Divya Joshi ma'am and Rochelle ma'am to begin with their conversation.
Thank you very much, Dr. Archana, Anita, and Rishikesh. And we'll keep the conversation going as and when our networks help us. So, good evening and welcome, dear friends. It gives me absolute pleasure to be in conversation with Divya Joshi over the launch of her book, Dance of Life. I first met her in Bikaner at the Sejure conference, and I'm so glad that she reveals to me that she's a poet at heart. I believe we are all poets at heart, whether we are unearthed or not yet. When I encapsulated her book into a blurb, I wrote the following, which I will read to you shortly. But before that, the structure of this little conversation will be such that we will speak to Divya. She will share her poems as we go along the flow of the conversation, and then we will open the flow up to question and answers. You could also type in your questions in the chat window, and Divya would take it up as and when it can weave into the conversation, or she will take it up at the end of the conversation. But we could keep this interactive by you can keep buzzing in the chat window as our conversation moves, so we also know that we are not facing technical glitch. Now to share the blurb. Friends, when we write blurbs for books, we have to write them in a way that is encapsulating. So this blurb I will be reading to you, but the conversation that we would have with Divya would unpack her book and would unpack the blurb. These are her few lines from the book Dance of Life. Born colorless but absorbing wavelengths, the sapient understands that even souls are objectified. Beautiful. Divya Joshi's writings are intimate, unself-conscious whisperings with potency beneath the simple structures of language and line. She incisively sees through shards and facades of existence. No wonder her enigmatic poems are startling. They were not meant to be read by an outsider. Her seeking unearths refreshing dimensions of a lived experience. And the range of her deliberation is on a spectrum of feminism applied through motherhood, womanhood, memory, nostalgia, hypothesis, and prophecies with rich philosophical depth and imagery. Congratulate you, Divya. I move on to our first question. How did this book come about? And I don't mean in terms of finite time duration, but when were the first inklings, the first thought, like the first leaf that fell to earth?
Thank you, Rochelle. First of all, I must thank you is a very small word, because when I say that you had written the blurb so beautifully, it really means that you actually understood. I don't know what I was up to when I was writing the book, but you understood what I actually meant to say. Now, talking about this first question of yours, yes, definitely this will obviously be the first question, that how did this book come about? I just remember that as a student, when I was in school, in my 11th or 12th standard, or when I just started college. And it always happens that we read literature and we are obviously interested in novels and poetry. And one name that quickly comes to my mind is Amrita Pritam. I will not... So just one line for your question that you've asked. When I go back and remember that I was very fond of Amrita Pritam, and one line that has touched me again and again from her short stories is when she writes, "कहानी लिखने वाला बड़ा नहीं होता, बड़ा वह है जिसने कहानी अपने जिस्म पर झेली है." Now, as a girl, I could not actually understand, to be very honest, because how can a kahani apne jism par jheli hai? But now at this point of life, at this stage of my life, I can very well relate that yes, it's all about ourselves. It's all about our lives. Because Rochelle, as human beings, we all, you are also a brilliant, wonderful writer. We know that as human beings, we all narrate. Every time we are narrating. And we all create. Mediums are different. And for a woman, because I'm a woman and I speak from the mouthpiece of a woman, I must say that for a woman, creativity, to express her creativity, the sky is limit. And one poem that has really, you can say that the first leaf, as you said, I'll read that smaller poem from the book to just give an idea, because as a girl, as a student, as a college going student, these experiences are very common. I think every girl and boys also, they know that they have such experiences. With I just read few lines. The poem is titled Whose Fault? In the moving bus, when you push yourself closer to me, making an effort to get under my skin, with that pestering touch, it is not my fault. In my house, when you wear the skin of a wolf and try to grope my body, disguised as uncle, relative, friends, or acquaintances, it is again not my fault. In the public places, when you thump lewd glances and blatant smiles, it is not my fault. During a photo session, when you ask me to reveal your cleavage, your teasing looks, and inappropriate requests, it is not my fault. As I walk towards the school and stalking and teasing humiliate me, marking me an acid attack victim, it is not my fault. And the last paragraph is very close to my heart, because as a mother also I say, whose fault it is? When you were in my womb, you survived on my nutrition and oxygen, and I was eternalized as your mother. It was my fault. So
very poignant. And this is one of my favorite poems, because it's so strong and it's so direct. It's like a knife in your chest. Please continue.
I've finished. And I just, because when I finished that it is not my fault, I'm emotional right now. And when you say that it's like a knife, I really understand that yes, it is like a knife. Because as mothers, and because I'm the mother of a son who is 23 years, so what exactly am I giving to my son or teaching my son? Because these incidents, these are just few metaphorical incidents that I have mentioned in the poem. They happen to every girl. They happen to every woman.
Yes, and I think the social conditioning of whose fault it is, because it largely lies, in patriarchy, under a patriarchal burden, the faults creates these fissures of self-doubt. And that's why this poem, Whose Fault Is It, is actually, attacking the crux, the core of patriarchy. No wonder it's such a powerful poem, and it's so simple. Divya, thank you for reading this, and thank you for starting the discussion with this. My second question to you, you've had an unconventional life. You're born into a family, as you say, with a golden spoon. Then parents separate when you were 14. Then your mother steers your life. What poems in this book speak of all those initial gleanings?
I know, Rochelle, as a friend, you know that this is very personal, but yes, there is no... if we say that a girl or a woman at the age of 14, if she faces a kind of an unconventional life, and as you rightly said, because this is what I share with my friends, that yes, I was born in a millionaire family. I was born in a family with a golden spoon. But then suddenly you are nowhere at maybe because of some circumstances, and then suddenly you look up to your mother, as I did, and then, as you rightly said, that she steers your life. Now, I will not say that my mother is a different woman because she has made me what I am today. Every mother, every woman is different, because the first realization that yes, I am a woman, I am a mother, I am a sister, or I am a woman rather, the thought itself is very exciting. When I look back, I must say that this thought itself was very exciting to me. It was very stimulating and very exhilarating. Although I don't have any such pinpointed poem in my book which talks of this, but I will just read two stanzas from two poems particularly. One is Memories, because when I look up during my adolescence years, and I say that yes, I have memories, but then suddenly you have all kinds of memories, fond memories, brutal memories. But then when we grow up, as I'm just sharing my personal experience, as I grew up, I learned that memories need to be cherished. Joys, sorrows, and unhappiness should never overpower your joys, because joy and happiness is something that is very innate to all human beings, innate to women in particular, and innate to all human beings. So when I wrote this poem, Memories, I just read a few lines, because not just women, but men would also relate to it. Every person who is going through a very turbulent or struggling life might relate to this. Wish I had a memory like a seed, dim and elusive, to let go my traumas, faintly sketched, to erase the heartbreaks, hazy and foggy, to efface all my agonies and grief, blurred and faint, to obliterate the bruises and the nightmares. Wish I had memories, wistful and reminiscent of approval and acceptance, jovial and cherished, of motherhood and nuptial bliss, nostalgic and happy, to freeze the childhood innocence. I repeat this sentence: to freeze that childhood innocence, fond and memorable, to bottle my self-esteem. Wish I could cease tossing between remembering and forgetting, and tame the woman in me.
You know, as I said, these are like self conversations. You know, it's like I can almost imagine you writing in a diary, because they're so personal, and like the phrase, bottle your self-esteem. I mean, you need to think many times over what that means, because self-esteem means so much. And self-esteem is something that grows from you. You build it. So when you say bottle self-esteem in relation to these things, you know what I find about your poems, Divya, that you have queries and questions and you answer them. Like somebody in the chat said a very beautiful line, that your last poem on whose fault it is a question that you yourself answer beautifully. So, you know, these are the self-reflections that make it look almost like you are allowing us, an outsider, privy into your diary notes. And thank you for doing that. My next question. I see the story of strong mothers, be it your own or you as the mother of your son. Share some poems with us that talk of that time or those forming times in context.
Definitely. As a mother, of course, immediately, as you said, two poems that come to my mind is, one is Energy, and the other poem is Creation. I will just read out from Creation.
And you could also tell us the context of the creation, of how these poems came about, if you remember.
I just selected this poem specifically because I thought it speaks of some remnants and some residues that as a girl I also cherished and girls cherish. It's about visiting Kamakhya Devi temple for the first time in my life. Maybe all of us must be knowing about Kamakhya. It's in Guwahati. It's a temple which is dedicated to goddess Kamakhya. And it's a very special temple. And I must say that every girl, every woman must go there because it has a lot of mythological context and concept that goes behind it. I will not go into all those details, but just one like example, that during the monthly menstrual time, that temple actually remains closed for some time, and it is assumed that Ma Kamakhya is like Ma Kamakhya and mothers, and something which is very specific to women. I will just read this because it's a very smaller poem. I dreamt of blood, of femininity, unfolding sexuality, thin wall between the worlds and words, temporarily connected with a greater spirit, honoring this circle of life, blessed by nature, receiving, restoring, and creating spiritual energies, celebrating this cosmic event with Ma Kamakhya, waking up again with renewed energy because I create. Because I create.
Beautiful and very spiritual. Sometimes I wonder how places, how they shape us as poets and how they shape the deep thinking that we have. So, places, sometimes, we have to ascribe places like, under the poem titles, because that's what places do. They say that a poet is a mystic. Okay, they say a poet is a philosopher. Sometimes we hear prophecies in our deep sleep, sometimes startling revelations. Tell us about some of your revelations which you've managed to put in this book, Dance of Life, and some that you haven't been able to put. Because I believe that, as a poet myself, that a poem attacks you. I almost feel like it's a wild animal and you are walking into the wilderness of your thoughts and it attacks you. And it's always an epiphany. It's always a stark revelation. And it enriches you. It makes you new. So what were those for you?
Very well said, Rochelle. And how poetically you said this, that it attacks you. It's like an epiphany. Yes, of course. And you're very true again, because maybe not this in this collection, but yes, some mysticism or some prophecies or some revelations are there in the back of the mind, because again, as we grow, we know that life is beautiful. We know that, but one thing that actually struck me, or I can say that it's like a starting revelation, was when I wrote a sentence. One day I woke up in the morning and I wrote in my diary that poetry will prepare me to death, for death. And then I closed my diary when in the evening, when I again started on my desk, sit on my desk and started writing. I said, why did I write this? Because poetry will prepare me for death. It's not about death in the real sense, but it's like a metaphorical death, because it's about transcending. I feel that it's about transcending the dualities. And definitely, because philosophy, mysticism is one subject, Rochelle, which is very close to my heart. So I will definitely not read the complete poem, but just read one stanza from a poem titled Mythical Beings. When I wrote this poem, I thought I must not place this poem in this collection. But then I turned it, or maybe it just turned itself like this, and it was there in this collection, very much there. This is not a very big, longer poem, but I will just read two stanzas, picking two lines. Mythical Beings. It is titled Mythical Beings. They emerged out of despair amidst collective madness, offering their body and soul to the needle, blown, spun, woven, and warped, a sacrifice, if it is so like, a long thread emanating from the navel, from the world of living to the world of dead. Multiple mythical female beings arise. I just read the last 3 lines. Thus was created the waf and the woof, the cloth, the thread, the loom, of consciousness, of life, of mystery.
It's so beautiful, and I'm still stuck over that first epiphany. You haven't put that epiphany of death in any of the poems.
No, not yet.
But I don't know why. It is kind of so magnetic that I'm still thinking about it while I'm listening to your poems.
It's in my next collection.
Yes, I'm wondering what your next collection will be. If the first one is that philosophical, your first footprint is that powerful. I only wish you all the best for the next one. We are all looking forward to it. Okay, as we talk of this collection, tell us more about the title of the book, but also what were the influences that shaped your ink and penmanship, and tell us a little about your relationship with literature and poetry, because I believe it's a long one, especially the literature. Yeah.
Yes. First of all, I will just talk for a minute about the book. Once you collect all the poems and pen down and make it like a collection, and it's ready to go to the print, you decide that we have to choose a title for the book itself. So Dance of Life was very close to my heart in the sense that as a trained Bharatnatyam dancer, I know that dance is such a stress reliever that it relieves you of all the stress, and it is so much of energy, grace, and beauty carrying within. And particularly when I wrote this Dance of Life, it was about I was just conceptualizing the dance which is performed by Parvati as complement to Tandav, which is performed by Lord Shiva, that is called Lasya. And as you asked that my connection with literature, yes, of course, because as a student of literature, poetry obviously comes to you. But again, I must tell that poetry doesn't come to all literature students, maybe in the sense that it comes specifically to every individual, because everyone writes differently and everyone has his or her own exposure to literature and an exposure to poetry. For me particularly, poetry is dance. Poetry is because I love everything that has rhythm, that has a movement. So I try in my next collection, of course, because in this collection, maybe sometimes you will find certain movements, because you will find certain poems which has that click of a movement or rhythm inside them. But wherever there is movement and rhythm, it automatically connects me to literature, and this is how the relationship grew and developed.
Wonderful. And I'm also reading the comments in the chat section, and thank you friends for doing that. They are so mesmerized by Whose Fault that now you have to read 2 more poems that go beyond Whose Fault. Come on, Divya. This is a
poems that go beyond Whose Fault, I am not sure, but yes, I will try to read one poem which is very close to my heart. And although it doesn't directly connects with Whose Fault, but it is like a very powerful, like if I appraise it or like interpret it in my own way, it is like a punch on the table that is inside out. It is very close to my heart. I will read, maybe you like it or not, because if Rochelle says closer to Whose Fault, I'm not very sure. But let me see if you like it. Inside Out. Actually, the title also is like very close to my heart, because when you wear your clothes inside out, it's like nothing. But do we really wear our souls inside out? That just struck me, and I thought, how can we wear in
That's
such
beautiful. That's a beautiful and very dangerous thought, because
dangerous
we are cowards.
Because in such a world we are living, where we actually don't know, identities are so like split identities are there, double identities, masks, everything. So double-faced, triple-faced, and people you're surrounded by such people. So how to wear your soul? That is how this poem came to me. And obviously, no offenses towards men who are in this program, no offenses. But still, I began the poem by saying he sees everything that she doesn't do or can't do. But he will never see what she can do or what she does, you know. How can you be comfortably formidable? Whenever you say that you want to grow, he will crush you, beat you, grind you to pieces so much so that you finally forget your name. But what's in a name, after all? Just be happily married. And the phrase happily married is within inverted commas. Happy and contented in his shadow. He will fulfill your demands, but never dare to go beyond accepted standards. Fluttering, flapping, and flitting, you must avoid. And if you can't resist or combat, just borrow his wings. Just borrow his wings. You know, you are frail and fragile. Earn your shelter and immunity. Learn to get rid of dis within commas, non. Don't behave like a sane paranoid. It's not only your body that is objectified. The sapient understands that even souls are objectified. Shun the thought that you are surrounded by sanctimonious and obtuse men. This is their world. Challenge, contest, endure, or survive. No wonder. They act and believe sheriffs. The last word and choice is yours. Whether you want to wear your body and mind inside out.
This is absolutely piercing. And borrow his wings, or these are sagas and layers of muteness. You know, absolutely piercing. And there are many comments already coming in, Divya, for this comments. So before I open up the stage to the audience, my two questions, one of which you've already answered in a way. Your next book is again a book of poetry and we are waiting for it. I'm going to share, however, for the other friends here, the link, the Amazon link of Divya's book, because many may have it and many may not have it. My final question to you, Divya, is we face different manifestations of patriarchy. And as you cancel patriarchy, how do you bring up a feminist son?
Now, this is very interesting, and the phrase itself is very interesting, Rochelle. How did you come up with this phrase, feminist son? Yes, you're true. The greatest challenge, of course, now patriarchy, when we say patriarchy, it's there, very much there. But then again, I feel as a woman, it's not about challenging patriarchy. Actually, it's more about women accepting. Again, I remember the last line the poem that I just read, because the last word and the last choice is always ours. The last choice is ours, because we have so much of spiritual energies, we have so much of infinite possibilities. We have to just reframe, recreate, to face, contest these manifestations of patriarchy. Again, you will say that I had a lot of influence of Amrita Pritam. So I again, just when I was talking this, I just remembered. She says, I'm just remembering the lines. Once she said, "Lagta hai ro padegi." Might not be the exact lines. "Lagta hai ro padegi," but वो रोई नहीं, क्योंकि रोना ऐसा जो किसी को दिखाई ही नहीं दिया. तो स्त्रियों का रोना कोई रो सकता है क्या? Can anybody see how women cry and how women react or how women contest? So the choice is obviously always in the hands of women, how they contest and face all these manifestations of patriarchy. This is what I feel.
Yes, well put. And also because there could be so many interpretations of this that this conversation will never end. I know that you had a clutch of poems around women. If there is any last poem you would like to read, because I know you deliberate a lot in your thesis and your studies about women. So if there's anything else you would like to read on that note, or we could open it up for the audience.
I think we can open up for questions. If during the questions I feel like reading something, I might do that.
Yes, that's perfect. So this was a very wonderful conversation. I wish this could continue for on and on, because sometimes when poets start talking, I mean, they only end up soul searching. So Dr. Archana, should we open this floor to the audience if they have questions? I hand the mic back to you.
Hi, Roshel. Hello.
Yes, Rishikesh. Yes, please.
Actually, because of some technical glitches, even our chief guest, Yuyutsu Sharma, he was also not able to join. Now he is with us. So I think before opening the session for the question answers, because we have put a particular session for that at the end.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
So we will go ahead like that. Okay. So Archana, you can go ahead with that.
Yes. Okay. Now I welcome Dr. Yuyutsu Sharma for talk on this event, to have his talk, have his beautiful appreciation of the poem. Over to Yuyutsu Sharma. I welcome you, sir. I welcome you, sir.
Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are audible, sir.
Oh, lovely. So I'm so sorry I had to it did some technical glitch and I couldn't join you. It's a wonderful session. I'm very impressed and very delighted to be here. This is amazing celebration of a poet and the dialogue which is going on between these two poets. This is an amazing work, and so many of the participants in this discussion. It's an amazing scenario, and so delighted, Divya, to read your book today, and it's a wonderful book, and in the sense that it's kind of some of the poems really I liked very much, and some of them you mentioned, Whose Fault, and the poems like our first poem, Missing, was very good. I liked it. And then the Shadows, and the Profiles, and then Exile. These poems are very beautiful. And also, I see that I was educated in Rajasthan. I did my MPhil in University of Rajasthan. So it's like coming back. It's like coming home. So I see these familiar faces, their accent. I'm reminded of my times at the University of Rajasthan, when I was studying there, and all these familiar faces and their dialect and their tones, the way they speak English, the way they utter sentences. It's a thrill to be back here and to meet these people and talk and see the celebration of Dr. Divya's. I think she should stop writing doctor now, because she's a poet now. Poets are above all doctors and all these other epithets. Now you got a bigger epithet, so you should give it up. Doctor is not enough. The sky is the limit, as you said. So, I'm also so happy to see that you're steeped so much in culture. Also, some of the poems reminded me of my first book. Because we grew up with this Hindu mythologies, our grandmas and our culture, and Hindu characters and myths and deities, and there's so much. It's like reading a very familiar voice, that you encounter while dealing with an Indian psyche or Indian individual growing up in Rajasthan, in Punjab, in Himachal. It's a thrill to be it's like very nostalgic to go back to those days when I started writing. And also, I think it's a disposition. It's a kind of mental makeup. You can become a doctor. You can become an engineer. You can be a poet. You have to be a poet. It's a kind of mental state. I think you have that mental state. It's a kind of it's a disposition. You can become a poet. You know, you are made up to grow up as a poet, because you have this idea, this whole mental makeup and this emotional state to make images, to think in terms of metaphors. So poetry doesn't come to you, I mean, like that you can learn it. You can unlearn it. The whole world is unlearning poetry, becoming material, becoming very, machine-like. But to learn poetry, it has to come from within. And it's like they say, right brain, left brain, the terms that they have. So and I think you have that disposition, this mental, emotional state of mind, that you make metaphors, you think in terms of poetry, you create images, and you see the world from a fresher angle. And these are, the poets are, as it's also, I think Rachel was saying that you are saying no offense. I think you should offend. The role of poetry is to offend. Don't say I don't offend. You say I don't want to offend these men. No, do offend them. They should be offended. They have done enough mayhem. They have done enough bloodshed. They have done enough injustice to women. And these men need to be offended, and they should realize what they have done. So never apologize as a poet. My advice to you: always offend these men or whoever you think is not proper. And so this, and also my only fear is that the whole sort of getting pigeonholed in this feminist thing could be dangerous as a poet. You have to grow up. You have to break these shackles that you build around yourself. Just being a feminist poet or writing just about feminism. So most of the book is dominated by this kind of feminist theme, which is okay. It's needed. It's okay. But then still, the wider you could open up your world, you create a world into other worlds that the whole universe is yours as a poet, and you can possess it. The Kabir, our poet, the Sufi Bhakti poet says, if you want to be a poet, first put your house on fire and come with me. So you have to take a bit of risk.
Please request others to mute yourself, please.
Yeah. So you have to take a risk. You have to be a little fearsome to be a poet. So as Kabir says, put your house on fire and come with me and be a poet. So you have to rise above you. You have to rise above yourself, rise above your material world, and be a poet. So that way, poets have to take risks. And I think you have done a beautiful opening, a beautiful beginning, and your journey as a poet will be blessed as you learn more to control your images and to build them. It's like the potter making so you know how to shape and how to build your world and grow. So my only fear is my hope is that you will not get bogged down by this feminist jargon, and you will grow up as a more of a free love, even men-loving poet or human-loving poet, and more a poet who celebrates the entire universe. But of course, we need to raise these issues. There's so much suffering and so much injustice being done, especially in Rajasthan, in Punjab, in Haryana. The North India is notoriously, defamed for such atrocities to women, and I appreciate and I congratulate you once again.
बहुत क्लासिकल प्रोग्राम है, पूरा इंटरनेशनल प्रोग्राम है, छा गई.
Thank you.
Very nice appreciation, sir. Thank you, sir. And it was really a great conversation that was going on between Divya Joshi ma'am and Rochelle Kotkar. So now I invite our Professor Pramodini Verma for her words of appreciation. I welcome you, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Thank you for allowing me this opportunity to talk about Divya's book. And it's delightful, and I want to begin by congratulating Divya for having brought out this beautiful book of poetry. And especially at a time like this, the pandemic, as you know, has been a very difficult time. We have all suffered in various ways, But the one good thing about the pandemic has been that it has allowed us to get into the world of poetry. I find that more people are reading poetry, more people are writing poetry than I have seen in a long time. So that is a very welcome thing. And I am delighted to see there are so many people here for the release of Divya's book. And that so many people are taking so much interest in this. So congratulations, Divya. And this is a lovely journey that you have started on. And I hope that it will continue to be a long journey. The first thing that strikes me when I look at your book is the layout of the poems. Most books, most text, when it is put on the page, is usually left aligned. But I find that Divya's poems are all centered, which is, I don't know whether it was Divya's idea or it was the publisher's idea, or if this has been done before, but I have seen it for the first time and I found this a delightful way of presenting the poems. Of course, this has been done before. It's not absolutely new. We have had poets who have shaped their poems in the shape of a cross or in the shape of a bird. But this way, to have a whole book printed with the lines centered was something new. And what it does is that it changes your experience of reading the poems. I find that some of these poems, which have these huge long lines in between, give you the impression of a poem that is ready to fly off like a bird. Then there are poems which are sort of huddled together, crouched together, and they give me the sense that they're ready to pounce. So what this does is that it influences the way in which you read each one of these poems. So I thought that that was a very interesting thing to do. Then as I look at the rest of the book, I find that in her preface, Divya says that she did not plan this collection to be gender specific. Now, my advice to Divya in this is the exact opposite of what Dr. Yutsu Sharma has said. I would say to her, Divya, stick to your feminism. Don't apologize, but don't also compromise. Stick to your material world. Don't even escape into spirituality. Stay here and fight. That's what we need to do. As a woman and as all women, you see, our primary experience is that of gender, being gendered, of patriarchy. It surrounds us. You can't escape it. It's been there always and it is here. And whether you are rich or poor, or you're educated or you're not educated, this is something that we have to live through. So I would say, don't compromise, don't apologize, don't escape. Stay there and fight it out. And we need to do this, and we need to do this strongly. So I recommend the fact that your book, you're looking for the thread that binds your poems together. And I think this is the thread that binds them together. And it's a beautiful thread. And as you say, that this is their world. Challenge it, contest it, endure it to survive. But recognize that it is their world and that we have to deal with it. Then again, I find another poem that I found very beautiful was the poem Missing. Because you see, to be woman is to also painstakingly establish your own identity. Because our identities are so easily subsumed in the various roles that are thrust upon us, or even those that we voluntarily accept. So the search for oneself is beautifully captured in your poem Missing. And I believe somewhere that this book of poems that you have written is your way of finding yourself. I'll quote a little bit from the poem because it gives you that sense of search, a little panicky and anxious to find it. I ran and looked for it in the kitchen. I hunted for it in the wardrobe. These are the usual roles women are assigned: the kitchen, the wardrobe. I cast about it for my writing desk, scavenged the garden, searched in between the plumbago bushes, and then look at the words stumbling out in my car, in the glove box, behind the gramophone, in the CD rack, inside the closet and the bookcase, ransacked every corner, but it was missing for the last 22 years. I must possess it again before I walk out in my pursuit of self-discovery. So Divya, I'm glad that you are making this journey of self-discovery. And as I said, I think this book is testimony to it. And I am delighted that you have started so well on this journey. But also I must say that poetry is the most sophisticated use of language and requires a chiseled use of words. And therefore it really puts our abilities and our sensibilities to test. Scotland's newly appointed national poet, Kathleen Ramey, has just declared that even people who are not terribly interested in poetry recognized that here is something of integrity, somewhere where they are probably not going to be lied to and where language is taken seriously. So this is something that poetry does, and this is something that I find Divya does. She takes language seriously. There's such a thirst for this, especially after the pandemic. It puts a responsibility on the poets. And here I would like to also quote Adrienne Rich, who has said that morality for a poet is a refusal of blinders, of traditional consolations, a courage to be alone or wounded, a willingness to step out into the fog, to take paths which may lead nowhere. Certainty, predictability are the first supports that have to go. And I find that most of Divya's poetry is a refusal of blinders, of traditional consolations. She has the courage to be alone and to be wounded. She must now find the courage to take us out into the fog on paths that perhaps lead nowhere, but which are still worth exploring. I look forward to many more beautiful poems from Divya soon again.
Thank you so much, ma'am. It was a very beautiful appreciation by you. Thank you so much, ma'am. Now I invite Parmeet sir for a review, for his review.
Dr. Parneet Jaggi. Dr. Parneet Jaggi.
Jaggi, okay.
Yeah, ma'am.
Yeah, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for having me. Am I audible, Rishikesh?
Yes, ma'am, you are audible, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you for having me amongst a galaxy of poets, thinkers, and listeners here. In the first place, I congratulate you, Divya, for this great collection. I read the whole of it. And I must say, Divya is not just a creative writer, but a great teacher too, because we belong to the same Department of Education in Rajasthan. She's a great teacher, a great administrator, and a very nice friend. Now, when we talk about poetry in general, I think poetry for me specifically is like laying bare your own soul. And believe me, it's not easy to do so. Pouring out all your experiences with such precision and beauty is not an easy task. And from this perspective, I feel that poet is a brave soul. Now, Divya's collection of English poems, as we've already talked about, and we've had a word from Mr. Yuyutsu Sharma and Madam Pramodini also. Dance of Life, it is like delineating several experiences of life and soul. We have the mystical part also, we have her role as a mother and as a great feminine energy also. So for that, I think you need lots of courage and also a peculiar sense of creativity to portray all these emotions with such precision, with such clarity as to how we can discuss all that. So when we start with the book, the very first thing, the title itself, Dance of Life, is alluring. And as Divya said, it is directly related to her experience as a dancer and as a creative artist. So it's beautifully coming out in every page of the book, and it projects the activity of the energy which is all around us and even inside us. So when we move on from the title to the thematic concerns, I find that the book is thematically rich with an adequate diversity to take the reader on a ride through the whole of existence, be it the external existence or the internal. It's talking about the mundane issues also, like her own personal experiences, her childbirth, her concern for her family, to the more serious concerns like gender equality, inequality, and even the loss of humanitarianism. Now, what is appealing here is that you find an indelible pathos in a few poems, in a few selected poems, in which the human pain resurfaces through images and metaphors, which is beautifully done and which is not everybody's cup of tea, which I find here. Because I saw that the poems were replete with both colorful imagery as well as a meditative kind of an imagery, serious kind of imagery. But they're also, on the other hand, pulsating with a vitality. They're not dull. They're not dead. The imagery, the images are speaking in their own language. They have a vitality, although they have a poignance also. So there is empathy, there is concern, there is color to portray those different myriad feelings and emotions. For example, in this poem, initially when she starts with the book, there's a poem, We Are Different, that is talking of the strength of character and a yearning for complete freedom. But then we have poem like Missing, just as Madam Pramodini just quoted from this. It delves into the painful identity crisis that we all go through, and it is a universal voice which has been beautifully brought up in the book. Then, of course, we have those personal experiences which are not to be missed, describing as personal as a childbirth, like we have it in the poem Emancipation, in which she writes, I quote, because she's concerned with what the generation is passing on to the next generation.
Anita ma'am, please mute yourself.
So, for instance, in the poem Emancipation, she writes, my daughter, I quote, I love to read these lines. My daughter came as a blessing. I completed myself in her signatures and relived my childhood. The simple joy of dressing her, colorful hairbands and frilled frocks, all my everyday lessons for her to bounce back, to know the pride and self-worth of a woman. How ordinary yet so extraordinary. When you present the universal aspect of a mother, of motherhood, of that experience of having a girl child and of bringing her up. Another theme that I found interspersed is, of course, we've talked about it elaborately with the previous speakers, is the gender concern, which is visible in the number of poems like Inside Out, Guilty, Be a Gentlewoman, Dupatta, and so on. Quite impressive. And we find her speaking strongly about the power, for the power and integrity of women. Even in poems like Profiles, Eraser, She, Torn Apart, Existence, and so on. Now, for example, we have, I think, quoted Guilty earlier also, where she says, this is how marriage works. Now, this is bold enough. This is bold enough, and we may have an elaborate debate on it, as we just heard Mr. Yuyutsu also speaking, that talk about it, no offenses, and Madam Pramodini, okay, stick to it. So we may have innumerable debates on it, but definitely what is needed here is enough courage to bring it out from inside you and lay it bare on a piece of paper or in a collection of poems. So kudos for that, Divya. That was really, really bold. That was really creative as well on your part. So in Guilty, she says, I'll just read a couple of lines. She says, this is how marriage works. You said, you expected me to destroy myself, self is in quotes, insisted on aborting my first baby, a girl. Good, she was murdered. If she was born, I would have taught her all my mother taught me. So this is how this shows her concern about how things need to change. Now is the right time. She's raising a voice, so I appreciate that. Then again, I find a little diversion in which we find an arousal of this strong feminine energy in comparison, in juxtaposition to what nature does. Nature acts as a foster mother to man, and she celebrates the strength of a woman in relation to the beauty and warmth of nature in poems like Mystery, where she says, I'll read out, the soil holds the sapling like a fetus in the womb, nurturing it to growth within limits, and an infinite space in the open sky, perpetuating deeper bonds. So I was quite impressed with the kind of boldness and with the kind of spontaneity. She's working on the language seriously, as Madam Burma just mentioned, and this is really the sign of a good poet. And then in the title poem, Dance of Life, I again noticed that she's taken those 5 strong similes They are like the epitome of Nritya, like the Prakriti, like an unleashed river, like the full moon, like goddess Swaha paint. Now these images are delineating the subtle energies playing and dancing around us in different designs. They leave us in awe and wonder. So it was beautifully done. Now, stealing through this welter of feminism, of identity and existence is also her love for Indian tradition and mythology, which is clearly discernible in poems like Ma, Dance of Life, Shadows, and so on, because she is invoking the goddesses, seeking that wholeness for herself, that completeness, a finish, a finesse that a woman is seeking for all her life. And I was reminded of Yeats's, W.B. Yeats's invocation that he does in Sailing to Byzantium, because he was also an artist, and to achieve that finesse and completeness as an artist, he was invoking the gods, or sages standing in God's holy fire. And he mentioned that as in a gold mosaic of a wall, come from the holy fire and burn in a gyre. So that was Yeats's statement, that invoking gods is pertinent in such case when we want to complete ourselves and we are longing for a completeness of our existence. And I found Divya's language quite crisp and precise, and she did not delve on the theoretical philosophizing or the didactic lessons, but she has been picking characters from the next door or the neighborhood or the main road of the city, and connecting the reader to the world around what we see, what we notice, what we observe, or we may have missed observing these images. So the use of vernacular diction is also there, mythological allegories is also there, and the Indian ethos makes it even more relatable for the reader. At times and places I found Divya irrepressible, hitting with her one-liners and stark images to convey her emotion. So we may call her a revolutionary in that sense. But overall, to conclude, to sum up, I would just like to say that the swerve from the mundane to the serious and back again to the direly satirical is constant in this poetry collection. I thoroughly enjoyed reading the collection, Divya, and I congratulate you. You're also a great friend, but I especially congratulate you here as a poet, because I too write poetry and I thoroughly enjoyed reading it. Congratulations for such a fructiferous collection of poems, and best wishes for many more to come. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, ma'am. It was very nice words that you uttered about the Dance of Life. The book is very, very great poem, very great work of poetry collection, I must say. Okay, now I would like to invite Rishikesh sir, Dr. Rishikesh sir, please, you can to carry on the session.
Thank you. Sorry, I was disconnected in between. So I just wanted to share my views as I observed while reading the book, because I also thoroughly enjoyed, and I also mentioned it to Dr. Divya, that I really loved some of her poems. It was really fantastic, and most of those poems happen, like people mentioned that, so many people we have mentioned already. I always feel that her poems takes you to that particular world where you find that you know everything, you know everyone, but unfortunately it's not true, because you are always looking in the true recognition. So for that you need to understand or to feel the true recognition of the particular certain things which she has mentioned in her poems. So, but still, I found that, in this search, you never find yourself perplexed. Just because I feel that it's just because of the nature, which she always, includes. The nature she includes. And that keeps you, soothing. So that is another, because of, like a kind of eco-critical concern, I have always, tried to find the console of nature in each and every, and it's there, in fact. It's not just, it's truly present. The, good combination of nature and women. I always say the feminist, it's not completely feminist approach, I would say. I think I mentioned it that time. In her poem Dance of Life, it was like, the ornamental dispositions which she has been, used as similes. So these ornamental dispositions are not the one what culture connotes. Okay, because culturally we are only aware of the particular symbols are used for this and that. So it's not for that simply. The poet goes beyond these dispositions and encarves a woman's narrative, not as an escapist, not as a submissive, or not even as victimized one, but as a tranquilizer, as a pacifier, and the dance at the end she has mentioned, the dance she danced. Okay, so that means, I always found it was really interesting. The dance she danced can't be categorized within the, defined form. As she told that, she is a trained Bharatanatyam dancer, but still I don't want to categorize in a particular dance form. The dance she danced, it was, rather with the unwind ankles, the revolutionary rhymes or rhythms, and the unbound moves. I found this kind of, the wholeness, what she's talking about, that particular dance. So, and this is, in general, in one's life, we can see that. Another poem I really noticed that was also good, small, but very interesting, very important, significant, Creation. And she has already discussed about that, how it came. And the place she has visited, I had also been there. And I was really surprised for the first time to know such things, because long back I visited and I was not aware about, all the things in depth. So creation also, the particular, the first expression she has used, the blood of femininity. It has, it might have various connotations, but before it turns towards a metaphysical aura, I found that, in all her poems, not only in Creation or not only in Dance of Life or Memories and all these, I found that she doesn't want to give birth to any Medusa. I just recalled that, the particular, that ancient Greek mythological character. So she doesn't want to give birth to any Medusa to establish the femininity, reproaching the patriarch. Instead, she wants to see it established or recognized the way it is. This I always found interesting in all of her poems, that she, being revolutionary, that's okay, that is important. But be what you are, that is always reflected in all her poems. So that's what I want to add here, because others have to continue. So I want to stop here with my best wishes to her. And thanks a lot, Dr. Divya. And my best wishes again. Thank you. Over to Archana.
Thank you, sir. Now I invite Mumtaz Alam, sir, to say a few words on the book.
Okay, good morning from Fiji. Because here right now 1:10 in the night, so it's good morning to all.
Thank you, sir.
And I was waiting from this is my first meeting with you all. I am Fiji, many of you don't know about Fiji, but Fiji is one small island country nearby Australia and New Zealand, and Indian diaspora is in here very prominent. So first of all, I would like to thank Dr. Dilip Jaiswal ji and Dr. Rishikesh Kumar Singh ji to introduce just giving me opportunity to join Ecosophical Foundation. that was a great opportunity for me and also for the organization. I am here in Fiji. I am working for organization, and I am working at head of school in our national university that is called Fiji National University in Fiji. That organization is very good for me to, and I learned that through the internet, and we connected through the Dr. Rishikesh sir. So after that, I joined this organization, and I am very happy to join this organization, and my friends also interested to join this organization, and we will work together for the benefit of organization in Fiji. So thank you all for this, all organization members, particularly Dr. Rishikesh sir. And this function is actually organized by EFSL to just book launching of Dance of Life. And I want to congratulate author Divya Joshi ji. Actually, really, I have gone through your book that I actually requested to Dr. Rishikesh to tell me the quote, because in Fiji we don't have access to Amazon. So I got that book, and I quote, "We speak different languages, we determine and speak the language of powers. When I resist, you call me a feminist." So feminist, actually feminist movement, and when I was reading your book, I just remember about 2-3 points. One is the Kamini Rao, first graduate under the British India, and she was also poet. And I also remember about Putula and Haider and Manto. When I was reading one, the people say about the you also but authors and authors not apologize to the peoples, because you are the mirror for the society. And I am not going to say in much detail about the book, but you very well organized 44 collections. And once if anyone start from first one, they will definitely finish all and try to finish in one day. Okay, well organized. That's already mentioned by other people. But in 135 years, the first graduates, and we are still fighting for the feminism, and that book is for our society. And I am personally telling you, I will definitely promote this book because I really like, and I printed that book. Sorry for that one, because that is some issue of the publication, the things we can't print the whole book. But sorry for that one. I am accepting in front of author Divya ji. I printed for my daughter. My daughter is in class 5. Okay, so in that, historically speaking, the condition of women in pre-colonial societies and the structure, all that was not actually aligned with the West. So, but this book is definitely help not to the feminism. That I am not saying the feminism. I am against the feminism. I am in pro of humanism, equality. Why feminism? Why patriarchy? There is no need of division in society. Just talk about the humanism. All are equal, male and female. Why? But that's long debate. We are not going to discuss in that one. But that your book is, although significant stride has been made on paper in India, but numerous obstacles remain in the way of women taking full advantage of their new rights and opportunities in India. And that book will definitely help. And Divya ji, you cover all the aspects from mother, daughter, son, social taboos, everything in one book. That book is not only book, that is the just like we are living in Pacific Ocean. That is like Pacific Ocean. If you go in deep, totally philosophical book. And this is, I really impressed with this book. So, and that will give the voice to the voiceless people. Definitely. And that will help to those who are on the margins of the margins. Definitely that book will help. And I am not going, many people already told, and here it's 1:30. So my family is also waiting. My daughter and my son is also moving here and there. But 1:30, so I am not going in detail, but finally I would like to thank you, and not saying too much, but I want to invite for one guest speaker one day to my university. If you agree. One day I want to invite you, and I will just ask Dr. Archana or Dr. Singh, Rishikesh Singh, give me details of Madam sent through the WhatsApp. I want to invite.
Sure.
And that session, actually on the feminist movement, we are going to organize some series of lectures, but I want just you to just read 2 or 3 poems of your book. Okay. So if you are in, if you give me permission, then we will definitely.
Definitely, sir. My honor and privilege. Definitely.
Okay. So definitely, I want to say that I want to invite. You can imagine that how much I like your book through that one. Okay. Then thank you, Archana, Dr. Archana. Thank you, Dr. Rishikesh ji. Thank you, Dilip sir ji. This is our first not face to face, that is Zoom communication. So I am also hoping for some more communication in future, and we will work together for the betterment of society and for the betterment of our communities. Thank you all.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, sir. We also look forward for that coordination with you. So thank you so much, sir. Now I invite Dr. Dilip Jaiswal for an evaluation. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Am I audible?
Yes, sir. You are audible, sir.
Thank you. Evaluation would be the, heavy word. I won't say evaluation. I would just like to share some words, what I gather after my reading. I've not been much to the poetry reading. Being more into the discipline like philosophy, but as a student of philosophy, I would say how I see this work of poetry, and so it has been a wide spectrum, so many shades, and so many currents of life or existence. And I was just wondering how poetry and philosophy can have their meeting points, and it is the work like this which shows up the way that there can be the meeting point, though these categories are not much to be said that they are just deterministic or mutually exclusive categories of linguistic representations like philosophy and poetry. They are not that way mutually exclusive, because what we philosophically says can be poetic, and what we poetically says can be philosophical. So they can go hand in hand. Not only in the sense of the linguistic structure and all, but even when we talk about the theme, when we talk about the content, specifically this work which we are dealing with, the dance of life, I find that what we say a kind of dualism, a kind of harmony and the orchestra kind of thing between the abstract and concrete, the tangible and transcendental, the mundane and soteriological dimension, and the beautiful kind of harmony I find. And I just want to in a way I just want to respond the Pramodini ma'am's concern that you need not to step into the spirituality that way, and the spirituality to say in her concern that it shouldn't be like you make compromise, you retreat into seclusion, you wear silence. This is not what spirituality actually stands for. If we see in the Bhagavad Gita, what Krishna was exhorting to Arjuna, the simple one thing, the whole discourse of Gita was for to fight. Arjuna was numb, but the Krishna exhorts him to fight, to assert again what is injustice, what is wrong. So it is no way that spirituality, when we talk about spirituality, that it is something that make us to retreat into seclusion, make us to be totally go into silence, non-assertive, submissive. And that spirit of fighting, asserting, is very much present in this world, in the what Gita says, and in Bhagavad Gita. And at the same time, seeking those high roads, along the high roads of self-search, you are very much steeped into the responding the challenges, and at the same time you are also somehow very much in the process of self-searching in the spiritual line. So these two concerns, on the one hand, I have a world which is strewn with so much oddities, injustice. It has given me so much wounds, bruises, hurts. In the same world, I am fighting, but my fighting spirit comes from the deep realization of my strength. And where lies my strength? My strength lies in my deep connectedness with cosmos, with nature. So, and also the capacity of being a creator. And it is very much underscored in some lines that I am a creator, that I create. You see, the strength which lies in being a creator, that empowering stance, and which gives us, which gives us a source to heal our wounds. So it has this work of poetry has beautifully, balanced the self-searching in the spiritual lines, and at the same time, addressing the issues which at a moment present at moment. With these lines, I would like to thank Divya ji for this beautiful work, and my good wishes that more of our pen would come in the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir. It's a very nice and wonderful evaluation and appreciation by you. Now let's invite our last reviewer, Dr. Alka, And afterwards, the session is open for the participants. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. I want to share something. Good evening, everyone. It is my proud privilege to present the review of the book Dance of Life on its inaugural ceremony. The book Dance of Life is a collection of 44 poems, and it is a good example of feminist writing. The collection reflects inner mystery of women, and every facet of woman is presented in this book. This book, as its writer has told, dedicated to women of fortitude and ingenuity. The woman is presented as embodiment of the forms of energy manifested by Parvati, Shakuntala, Kunti, Sita, Kaushalya, and Yashoda. It is written in our scriptures, Yat Naryastu Pujante Ramanti Tatra Devtaha, Yatre Tastu Na Pujante Sarvastu Trapla Kriya. It means where women are honored, divinity blossoms there. And wherever women are dishonored, all action, no matter how noble it may be, remains unfruitful. But the reality of women's life is totally different from this shlok. In reality, woman is not allowed to live her life according to her will. The poet here talks about various aspects of a woman's life. After reading this collection of poems, many mysteries of women's psychology can be understood. Here, I would like to discuss some poems from the collection. First poem of this collection, Touch, reveals the inner urges and divine dreams of a woman who is intimidated by this patriarchal system. Another poem, entitled Missing, describes the missing identity of a woman who wishes to possess it again. Another poem, Memories, presents a woman who wants to have memory like a sieve so that she can forget all her agonies and grief and can only remember happy memories. I quote some lines from this poem. Here at the concluding part of the poem, poet has written, "Wish I could cease choosing between remembering and forgetting and tame the woman in me." I have quoted here other two poems. The poem Whose Fault brings a big question mark on the harsh reality of present life. In today's time, girls are not safe. They are pestered in moving buses and public places. Even in their houses, they are not safe. Here the question arises, who is responsible for this situation? The answer of the question given in the poem poses another big question for all of us, whether it is the woman. Whose fault is this? In this poem, poet has written, "When you were in my womb, you survived on my nutrition and oxygen. I was eternalized as your mother. It was my fault." Another poem that is related to the experience of a mother is To My Son. In To My Son, a mother teaches her son, always be attentive to a woman's need and don't be swayed away by the tide of arrogant patriarchy. The mother in the poem prays for the divine nature of her son. The poem reflects the feelings of every woman in general. In our culture, we see that a mother always tries to guide her children on the right path, and a children's success is measured by his bringing up. In the last part of the poem, a mother wishes, "My son, I just pray you stay divine and complete me." This collection mainly describes the condition of women in Indian society. Other poems like Bindi, Dupatta, these Indian symbols are here presented in different perspectives. By using Bindi, a woman is concealing her wisdom. The poem Dupatta is a satire on the filthy mind of people who don't respect a woman. They should realize the dupatta that protected them from cold and sun. Mothers are never vulnerable. So at last, I will say women in Indian society are marginalized and oppressed for centuries. Even though we all talk a lot about women's rights, but to change the system and mentality is not possible in a day. A woman never tries to protest for her rights because she is brought up in Indian society in a way that she is told from her childhood that she has to cope up with this patriarchal system. And she regards it as her destiny, and she accepts this patriarchal system without a voice of protest. I conclude this collection as a clarion call for all those women who are suppressed and not able to raise voice for their rights. At last, I would like to congratulate Dr. Divya Joshi on writing this wonderful collection of poems. I extend my deepest gratitude to the author of the book, Dr. Divya Joshi, and Theosophical Foundation for providing me the opportunity to present this review. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. It was very a nice presentation of a detailed presentation of the analysis of the book. So after this, now I thank you so much, ma'am. Now I invite now all the participants are invited for an open session and for an open discussion on the topic, on today's topic. Now open for questions and queries. If you have any, please.
Yeah, Dr. Sudhir, you raised your hand. Now you can ask.
First of all, thank you everybody for all lovely discussions on this book, and thanks to EFSLE for organizing this wonderful seminar after a long time, and a person like me got opportunity to hear all the intellectuals on topics like feminism and other things. I'm really fascinated. I was really, I didn't have time to attend this seminar, but I made it sure to attend because the very title of the book that Dr. Divya has published really fascinated me, The Dance of Life, because it suggests action and it suggests life. I mean, life even in death. So it suggests action. When there is action, there is life, and when there is absence of this dance, then there is death in life. So this dance is very important in life, and as this dance has been captured beautifully in words by Dr. Divya, it fascinated me. And so another thing is that even the image on the cover of the book is very beautiful. I congratulate Dr. Divya for this. The whirling movement, and then there is raising of the hand. It's towards sky. It's fetching something, rising above what she is or what women are expected to be. The rising above is very, very important, and because this suggests that assertion also. This dance suggests that assertion, which is very, very apparent in all her poems. She's asserting beautifully, and especially my special appreciation for Whose Fault, because this is what is the need of the hour, whose fault it is. And as someone said here, it's not feminism, it's womanism. And as a woman, she's being a good, true mother, and she's speaking truth to her son, what he should be like. This is, I think, need of the hour, how we are training our children, our daughters and sons to be like. If we are training our daughters to assert, to grow, or not to go down, at the same time we need to train our sons how to behave and how to respect women, which is very, very important. And that is why I was really, really fascinated by the poem Whose Fault It Is. Another thing is, then there's all the poems that Dr. Divya has written, and what I came across, because I still have to get my copy. I think it's available online, because it's today only I came across this book through Rishikesh. He sent me the link. So I'll be getting my copy, and it will be more than a pleasure to read this book. And a person like me, Dr. Divya, I really was enlightened. And as literature shows mirror to the society, today your poem has shown a mirror to me also as a man. When you say borrow my wings, this is very, very emotional moment for me, because as a father, as a son, as a husband, you always actually are doing that. Consciously or unconsciously, you want others to borrow your wings and live under that shadow. So when I came across, I'm having goosebumps when I'm speaking this, when I actually heard that phrase from you, you borrow my wings if you really want to, rise above. That actually made me to introspect whether I'm not doing that. If I am doing that, I need to stop it. So this is how you are speaking truth in your poems, and that truth is very, very important. And then you said the men in the group should not feel annoyed if people in this group they start feeling annoyed by such, speaking of truth, I think then LEGH movement is not going to succeed. For its success, we all need to first grow ourselves and then give a message to others for such things. Thank you very much for being a wonderful poet, Dr. Divya, and I'm looking forward to read this book of poetry. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. It was a nice review by you. Now, are there any more questions or queries by anyone? And is the session is still open for discussion? Or
in between anybody comes out with his or her question, I would like to personally thank to all those, especially all the joint secretaries who joined us across the nation. Like Professor Kalpana Purohit is there with us, Dr. Alpana Gupta from Rajasthan, Dr. Sudhir Singh, as he discussed over here, and Dr. Shobha Sharma from Sikkim. She is also with us. Dr. Bhagishri Verma from Maharashtra, Mumbai. She is there with us. Dr. Amod Kumar Rai, he is also from us, from Gorakhpur, Uttar Pradesh. So, and others, other members as well. So, I'm really thankful to all of you that you came, you joined, and you came here to encourage Dr. Divya and appreciate her work. Thank you. So now, if there is any question, we can go ahead. If not,
good evening.
Yeah, tell me.
Good evening.
Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening, ma'am. This is Sanjana Sharma from SPCGCA Ajmer.
Yes, ma'am. Please continue.
I have been a scholar of Divya, ma'am. Could I put forth my views about ma'am's this wonderful book?
Yes, ma'am. Sure.
Good evening, everyone. Divya, ma'am, congratulations. And I would like to say that in this book, Divya ma'am has spoken as an illumined soul. This book is impressive both in quantity and quality. In her poems, we discern a new kind of lyric of inner life. Both in her matter and manner, her poems show how she has discovered, manifested, and realized her own potential as a woman. And ma'am has succeeded in suggestively putting forth a view that psyche of men also needs a basic shift in terms of the treatment of women for realizing the possibilities of a happy and fulfilled life. This is what I have to say. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone.
Yeah, good evening.
I am Dr. Praveen Mirza from Government Girls College, Ajmer. Could you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. We can hear you, ma'am.
Yes, Divya has been a very good friend of mine, and I would first of all like to congratulate her for this book. And I would just like to add one observation which Ma'am Pramila made, that she has graphologically placed the poems at the center, which I believe, as the professor from Fiji said, that we need to put the women. In fact, you think of women in terms of humanity, so I think it is an effort graphologically by Divya to place the women in a central position from margins to center. I don't know whether she has it in her mind or not, but this is what I observe, and I am still waiting to read this collection. Once again, I congratulate Divya for this book. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, if anyone has something to say, or if anyone has some questions, please.
Yes, I do have a question. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am. You can continue, ma'am.
Yeah, this is Alpana Gupta from Jaipur, Rajasthan. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. We can hear you, ma'am. Please, you can continue, ma'am.
Okay. Fine. Divya ji, first of all, I'd like to congratulate you on a very beautiful collection reflecting the feminist ideology. Though I don't find myself competent enough to comment on your poems, the expertise that you have. But still, there are there is something I'd like to say and one question I'd like to ask. About the first poem I'd already commented. About one of your poems, Energy, I'd like to comment that I love it for its boldness. It very beautifully depicts the two poles that the society has. On one side, hiding the truth or putting it behind the veil, which is actually the very source of origin. Subject which is totally taboo to speak in, but is also the source of origin or regeneration and a new life. So I love the poem for its boldness and bringing out this dichotomy. Now my question is that, to be a poet, it's very obvious that one needs to be quite sensitive and quite observant, which you obviously are. But do I see a reflection of the poet's personality in these poems?
Thank you, Alpna ma'am, for appreciating the poem, and especially the poem Energy. That is also very close to my heart, because in that poem I've used similes for women. And those similes are, of course, as you rightly pointed out, they are courageous enough to say what a woman comprises of.
Yes.
Regarding your question, personality, of course, we cannot hide our personality. That is very true. But what happens is that, again, it's my personal experience that I'm sharing. These poems came to me as and when. Because what happens is, throughout the day, we have thought processes going on. And if you're in a habit of writing a diary or jotting down your thoughts on paper, then you just drop a few words there, and then you leave them there at times. Sometimes you take up those words in the evening or night when you are relaxed to sit and actually enlarge them or expand them. But sometimes you don't. So that is what I did. Those lines or those phrases which I jotted down, they became poems later on. And I don't know whether they reflect my personality or not, but as a human being, I would always say that we can't hide our personality. It reflects at times. So yes or no, this is the answer. I have no
Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, continue if anyone has question.
Yeah, Dr. Divya, just one more question. One question rather. I didn't ask you earlier. Hello.
Yes, sir.
When there was a question to you whether it reflects your personality or whether it was subjective or not, don't you think that though it is your honest expression direct from your heart, you are pouring whatever you feel in your words, but the moment a reader reads it, we are feeling that this is becoming from, it's going from individual experiences to a universal experience, because what you have written is actually the story of every woman.
Yes, sir. First of all, thank you for that wonderful review that you presented earlier. And the one line that you said that it's giving you goosebumps was enough for me. It was so overwhelming for me. Thank you for that. Yes, when you say that our individual experiences are universal, and that is applicable and true to every aspect of life, because we observe, we think, and then we create. So observing from or taking some ideas or taking some stories from surroundings, reading them somewhere, narrating them somewhere, or writing them somewhere is actually what your experiences are made of. So yes, of course, individual experiences are given a deliberate turn towards universal experience to sound like that, to reflect it like that, because I would always place myself, when I observe something, a pain or a happiness, I would always place myself in other situation, and then I would write. So in that case, maybe that individual observation or experience becomes an objective one and a universal one.
Thank you, madam.
Thank you, sir. If there are any more questions, if there are not, so let us now invite Dr. Divya ma'am the star and the full moon of this session. I invite you, ma'am, for a vote of thanks. Please, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Archana ma'am. Actually, when you invite me and ask me to present a formal vote of thanks, right now, with the kind of event that Rishikesh sir has created and Ecosophical Foundation has created, has made me speechless. I have no words to express my gratitude. I have no words to express my thanks to each one of you who are present in this event and who have actually, it's for a writer, reading those poems and relating to those poems is the most precious gift that a writer can take back home. But still, formality, I would begin and present a formal vote of thanks. And I begin this formal vote of thanks by expressing my indebtedness to the Almighty, my mother, for blessing me with such beautiful souls around. This evening, I am among such beautiful souls. All of you, thank you. A heartfelt gratitude to Ecosophical Foundation for the Study of Literature and Environment, EFSLE, the organizers, and all the team members for initiating and designing this event on such a scale. Thank you all. Words fall short to extend my gratitude to Rishikesh ji, President EFSLE, for curating and executing this event with such grace and splendor. Thank you so much, sir. My sincere thanks to Dr. Anita Goswami, Coordinator EFSLE Rajasthan, Dr. Archana Kadian, Coordinator EFSLE Haryana, the host and the convener. And thanks to Dr. Paneet Jaggi, a good friend, Dr. Alka, for reading, reviewing, and appreciating my poetic endeavors, and all other reviewers who have read my poems and appreciated them. Our very special thanks to Professor Pramodini Verma, Vice President, EFSLE, South Asian University. Ma'am, for your encouraging words and for your graceful presence. Thank you very much, ma'am. My gratitude to Professor Mumtaz Alam for words of appreciation and for sparing his time at such an odd hour. Thank you so much, sir. And the way you understood my poems and reviewed it in your own way was really overwhelming. Thank you, sir. Thanks are also due to Dr. Dilip Jaiswal, MD, EFSLE, and Assistant Professor, Delhi University, for his cooperation, support, and reviewing the book and the appraisal of the book. A very deep sense of appreciation and gratitude to our chief guest, Yuyutsu Sharma, for his motivating and benign presence. I repeat, for his motivating and benign presence in this event. Sir, I in person am overwhelmed and honored by your presence and by your words. Thank you so much, sir. And sir, here I would just mention, you said go beyond gender. Yes, of course, that this collection was not planned in the way it came out to be. It was just that all of the poems related somewhere to women, so it came out as a gender collection. But definitely, very soon, the second collection of mine that is titled Matryoksha will be in your hands. And I'm looking forward to get a review from you for that book, because I've tried to move beyond gender, beyond identities. And thank you so much, sir. Thanks is a small word to mean what I say to Rochelle for her constant support as a friend and almost as a concert in my poetic journey of the book, from writing a beautiful blurb to making her presence here in this event. Million thanks, Rochelle. I would also extend my thanks to Mr. Brijesh Kumar, Executive Council, Member EFSLE, for logistics and other details. Thanks are also due to Mr. Sudarshan Kechuri, Author Press, for bringing out the book so brilliantly. A little mention here for what Dr. Praveen Mehta has pointed out, and Professor Pramodini Verma also said. Yes, these poems are centered, and I wanted them to be centered in my next collection also. I am preferring the same formatting, that all my poems are centered, aligned. So yes, I wanted them to be like this. I love this kind of a formatting. maybe because I love to be in the center. Thank you. I would also like to place on record my hearty thanks to Abhishek Khatri for his technical support and persistent efforts in making this event successful. Last but not the least, my mentor, my guru, Mohta uncle, my son, my family, my FSLE family, all my readers, reviewers, critics, and audience. I'm grateful to all of you for your presence in my life. Not just this event, but for your graceful presence in my life. And I end up by saying that life is beautiful. And it becomes more beautiful with memories that we cherish and treasure. And today is a day I would always cherish. Cherish like a metaphor, like a corset. It's actually my signature day. I have a poem titled in the collection Signature Walk, but it's like a signature day for me. And I'm highly grateful and thankful to FSLE for organizing this event like this. And I call it a signature day. Beholden I am to foster this forever. Thank you all.
Thank you, ma'am. It was deeply engaging session today, and it was very nice talking to you, ma'am. And as an individual, as a mother, as a woman, as a wife, as a human being, we all can connect to you spiritually, psychologically, on every level. And your book, your poems, they are the reflections of your heart, of the heart of all the people in the world. So they are just like coming of age. So they will never die. They will just rise and rise they will always flow like the river. And they are deeply energetic, like your poem Energy. They are full of that energy. And ma'am, it was really an inspiring session with you, ma'am. Deeply motivating, and it has deeply motivated me also to write something. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you to have you here. And we also thank Rochelle Potker, ma'am, to be with us today. And so it was very wonderful session today. And now we also look forward to have such great sessions ahead with you, ma'am, Divya ma'am, with Rochelle Potker ma'am, with our chief guest, Mr. Yuyutsu Sharma, and all the other dignitaries present in this session. So we look forward for a great time ahead. Thank you, all of you. Thank you so much. It was really wonderful for me to introduce and welcome you all here. And now I thank with my heart. Thank you all. Thank you, ma'am. So now we can wind up our session here. Thank you. Rishikesh, if you have to say something. Okay, sir. So thank you, all of you. Bye. That's it. Thank you, ma'am.